Welcome, everyone. We'll call this meeting of the Amador County Board of Supervisors to order on this Tuesday, September 27th, 2022. The board has met in closed session. Item 1, conference with labor negotiators, just a report from staff, and item 2, confidential minutes were approved. Could you all join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And we'll go on to public matters not on the agenda, discussion items only, no action to be taken. Any person may address the board at this time upon any subject within the jurisdiction of the Amador County Board of Supervisors. However, any matter that requires action may be referred to staff and or committee for a report and recommendation for possible action at a subsequent board meeting. There is a 3-minute time limit and public comment. Anyone? Heather, anyone on Zoom? Come on up, Dominic.
Not at this time.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning, Board. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. You might want to give one to our board clerk for Supervisor Axe too. And I'll note that before Dominic speaks, Supervisor Axe is attending the meeting via Zoom. He's recovering nicely from recent surgery.
Hold on just for a second. I'll try it again.
Dominic Marino, Sutter Creek Fire District. A couple things. I sent a letter to the board on 2 occasions over the last couple of months concerning the 118 map changes that were promised by votes of this board to fix, to have been not corrected for the last 3 years. I'd like to know the status of that request. Haven't heard anything on it.
That's a CAL FIRE issue more than anything, right?
Oh, no, it's actually, the board voted to fix it. So, and then there was promises made from this board to fix it.
Well, I think the board voted to fix it, and then CAL FIRE made decisions based on their dispatch, what they felt were appropriate.
Which we find out today that aren't. So I think we still need to look into this subject going forward.
Yeah, I don't think it's just a CAL FIRE issue, because the board does give CAL FIRE directions and where different fire agencies respond.
We don't control how they operate Camino, though.
No. Actually, they're a contracted agency. So usually when you have a contract, you can actually put conditions and things in it. So just like to find out status of that. Second thing, grand jury report on the fuel mitigation. I was in front of the board when the Defensible Space Ordinance was adopted. As you remember, I recommended the board not adopt it since it mirrored state law that was already in place. I've asked the board many times to send a letter to CAL FIRE asking to fulfill the functions of their mission and inspect the properties located in Amador County for compliance with state law. I've included a chart for you that's put out by LAO showing the deficiencies in inspections. On another note, in the grand jury report, the smaller fire agencies in this county are more efficient, conduct more inspections, and have better ordinances to deal with fire issues in their areas. This board should ask for their input for making ordinances that will be very impactful for the citizens in the county. Third, I read again about how this board has handed out more money to one fire agency in the county. This board represents 100% of the citizens of Amador County. Over the last decade, this board has given over $3 million to one agency that represents roughly 50% of the population, while the other agencies representing roughly 50% of the population received about $50,000 total. This board is supposed to represent all of us. Also, that doesn't include dispatching. This is money above, beyond dispatching. Third, Rob Withrow has been telling people that he's the new deputy chief for APD and soon might be the chief. As a CAL FIRE division chief, Withrow has a history. He has shown up on calls, screaming at individuals that he was going to take his resources away from an active fire because a letter was sent to his supervisor. He was instrumental in making the 118 map and trying to defend the map by blaming first the Buena Vista Rancheria and then LAFCO. We finally found out after a while that it was taking money, the object was to take money from other fire agencies. Prior to Chief Blankenheim being promoted as unit chief, and putting Rob on the shelf. Rob appeared in this chamber stating how bad local fire chiefs were and made accusations that were misguided and were refuted. He used his power to harm agencies like Ione and Jackson by not hiring them to fill stations coverages in the county. He disapproved Pine Grove camp crews working in some areas because he didn't like individuals. I also would like to thank Supervisor Neto as an individual, Supervisor Neto, an individual who also worked at Pine Grove Camp, came in front of this board last year and made comments concerning me. Brian was the only board member who refuted the charges that were made and proven false. Also, let's not forget the Jackson Fire Chief. Jackson's Fire Chief, the first female chief in Amador County, was fired earlier this year. She wasn't fired for doing a good job, wasn't fired for straightening out the finances, she wasn't fired for hiring additional fire personnel, she wasn't fired for bringing grants into Jackson, wasn't fired for increasing the engine coverage in Jackson, wasn't fired for being the lead grant writer for Amador County fire agencies. Why was she fired? Everyone in this room knows why she was fired. I won't spell it out. After not supporting him, Rob sent letters questioning her qualifications, even though her ability exceeds his. Individuals showed up and lashed out to the fire chief, and next thing you know it, the first female fire chief in Amador County is canned because she did her job. The Ledger Dispatch did a story on this, and then everyone went stealth. This board might have some ties to this. Who knows? Maybe we should investigate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your opinions. Any other public comment? Then we will move on. Oh, Dr. Custer.
Thank you. I'm here today.
Can you, just for the record, state your name, please?
Yes. Oral Custer. Do you need my address?
No, that's good. Thank you.
I'm here to read some material from the New California State. So it'll be just probably 3 or 4 minutes.
You have 3 minutes, and that's what I'm going to hold you to because I see we have other speakers too. I would warn you in the future, it would be better to summarize this material and present the documents to our board clerk. That's what most people usually do.
This material is summarized. We, the people of the state of New California, notice to all Californians, first declaration of truth. The citizens of New California have decided to remedy the abuse of power by the government of California by exercising their right to form a new state provided in the United States Constitution, Article 4, Sections 3 and 4. We are determined to live under a state government in the United States of America and under the Constitution of the United States. It's a declaration of tyranny, violation of the United States Constitution, Article 4, Section 4, Clause 1. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government. Today, California is in a state of free fall at all levels. This free fall has been orchestrated over the last 170 years by socialists and communists, and we're now nearing the end of their socialist communist plan. That clearly demonstrates a design to reduce United States citizens living in California under absolute despotism. Today, this plan has eliminated the 3 branches of government, created a mono-party legislature, which has enabled and empowered the rise of pusillanimous governor turned dictator. A pusillanimous governor whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be elected governor of a free people. Likewise, elected, appointed, and regional officials of the state of California, whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant, are unfit to be elected appointed and regional officials of a free people. The history of the present pusillanimous governor of California, the past globalist governor of California, and other officials of the state of California is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over the state of California. We, the
You
citizens
could
of
wrap
the
up your
state of New
presentation
California,
pretty quick,
have
Dr.
petitioned.
Custer. Please wrap up your presentation.
I will wrap it up right now. We, the citizens of the new state of California, have petitioned for redress of grievances in the most humble terms, reading a total of 190 grievances of county courthouse locations within the borders of New California state during the course of 4 years. Nor have we, the citizens of the state of New California, been wanting inattentions to our California brethren. But our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning.
Morning, gentlemen. Aboard Chris Strong from Island, California. I'll continue on with the second declaration of truth. We, the people of the state of New California, notice to all Californians, second declaration of truth. The citizens of New California have decided to remedy the abuse of power by the government of California by exercising their right to form a new state provided in the United States Constitution, Article 4, Sections 3 and 4. We are determined to live under a state government in the United States of America and under the Constitution of the United States. Declaration of invasion. Violation of United States Constitution, Article 4, Section 4, Clause 2, and shall protect each of them against invasion. The state of California governor and government officials working alongside leaders of foreign governments that are averse to the United States of America facilitate and encourage the flood of illegal foreign nationals into California. The state of California, in open defiance of federal law, has declared itself a sanctuary for all persons illegally entering the state. This sanctuary status acts as a magnet for known criminals and terrorists who desire to harm citizens of California and of the United States. This status brings human trafficking and drug smuggling activities to California, endangering the lives and safety of the citizens. The state of California has failed to prevent this invasion, which is in direct violation of the Constitution of the United States, Article 4, Section 4, that guarantees protection from invasion. The on-the-ground violence and lawlessness all across the southern border of the United States caused by cartels and gangs is extensive, well-documented, and persistent. It satisfies the definition of actually invaded and invasion under the Constitution of the United States. Today, California is in a state of free fall at all levels, like we just heard. This free fall has been orchestrated over the last 170 years by socialist and communist regimes, and now we're nearing the end of their socialist communist plan that clearly demonstrates a design to reduce the United States citizens living in California under utter despotism. Today, this plan has eliminated the three branches of government, created a monoparty legislature which has enabled and empowered the rise of a pusillanimous governor turned dictator. Abdication of authority. By a betrayal by the sitting pusillanimous socialist governor/dictator of California, the monoparty legislature and local elected officials is evidence of abdication of their responsibilities of authority and sovereignty over the citizens of the United States and living in California state. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other public comment? Supervisor Brown.
Yeah, I want to thank American Legion for hosting another blood drive yesterday. Bloodsuckers got me for another court, but it's very much a needed thing that, please, anybody that can or will donate blood, please do it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? No. Hearing none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda, and item 3E will have a slight change in the last bullet point. The end of the sentence, funds into the account with the already allocated funding at the appropriate time, rather than as she deems appropriate.
Move to approve with that change.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the regular agenda. Heather, roll call, please.
Thank you, Chairman Forster,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Brown,
Aye.
Supervisor Crew,
Aye.
Supervisor Onetto,
Aye.
and Supervisor Axe.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. On to approval of items on the consent agenda. Item 4M, Environmental Health Department, and this revolves around the Amador County Uniform Program Agency, or CUPA, Inspection and Enforcement Plan, will be pulled and brought back on our regular agenda at the next meeting. I think looking at the agenda, that's always been a item that the board wants to keep control over. It looks like not going to have as much with the state having mandatory rules that have to be put in place, but it will be brought back. So with that change, can I have approval of the consent agenda?
Move to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Roll call.
Thank you, Chairman Forster,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Brown,
Aye.
Supervisor Crew,
Aye.
Supervisor Onetto,
Aye.
and Supervisor Axe.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion carries 5-0. Go on to our regular agenda. Item 3A, discussion of possible action relative to proposed Shenandoah Road improvements. And Mr. Vila, good morning.
Good morning, Board.
Morning.
Richard Vila, Public Works Director. Just in summary, back in March, we discussed proposed improvements for Shenandoah Road, specifically section beginning approximately half a mile past the Fiddletown Road intersection to just past the Lower Steiner Road intersection, with a length of approximately 3.75 miles. The board provided direction to move forward to prepare for improvements on that section. We talked about, because of the length and the costs that we could be running into, that we could break that project up into a base bid, which would be the first 3 miles, and then an alternate bid for the last 3/4 miles, so that if we get favorable bid figures, that we could do the alternate. Otherwise, we could sit with the base, because the base bid, which runs up to about Bell Road, is the most critical part of that road section. And just, there's an attachment in your package with a map that kind of lays out where those areas are, to kind of familiarize, get yourself oriented with that. It's a pretty aggressive project, a large project. I don't know, if the county has had projects like this in the past at this magnitude. So it's certainly an undertaking.
You have had projects like that, but a long time ago.
Yeah. In June, through an engineering task order, we entered into contract with Bennett Engineering, deliverables including a memorandum of reasonable alternatives, plans and specs, and an estimate for the base bid and bid alternate. Included in their work would be a geotechnical investigation. There was I think it was 20 borings that were done along this road section to get us a good idea of what kind of road conditions we have as far as existing pavement thickness, base thickness, and sub-bade makeup. And that helps us to make a good assessment on the existing condition of the road, and to guide us on what kind of improvements are necessary for this road.
What those borings find, you know, roughly, off top of your head?
I don't have that off the top of my head. They varied. There's pavement thickness there of anywhere from 4 to 6 inches, I believe. Your base material varies from, I think there's some spots where there isn't a base material, up to areas that have 4 to 6 inches, so it varies as you go along. Not knowing how the history of the road, it probably was built in different phases, and maybe started as a 1-lane road and widened to a 2-lane road, and so there's a lot of variation that could have occurred during the various stages of construction of the road that exists today. And, you know, over the course of time, the function of this road has increased. There's a lot more traffic there than it was in previous years. We've had a lot of development with the wineries along this road. So we have that kind of commercial type traffic. We get a lot of people who come and visit the wineries and such. So it's probably, you know, the road has grown from probably a local road a number of years ago to a major collector now. So when we look to do improvements, we want to make sure that we make those improvements with that usage in mind. Based on that, you know, based on the geotechnical report, we feel that the structural cross-section of the road should be increased from where it is now so that we can ensure, you know, when we do improvements that they're going to last for the life that they're intended to be.
Richard, with that in mind,
Yes.
you and I have talked about the truck traffic that's on the road now because of the demolition work, but the tree removal also from the Caldor fire. So that brings in another dynamic when you're talking about the pressure that's going to be put on that road in the future. Even if we improve it to these standards, it's just going to fall apart that much quicker, isn't it?
Well, that's certainly a possibility. The current traffic that's on there, I would say is a short term, but we're trying to look into and find out how long that's going to last, whether it's going to be 6 months, 2 years, or whatever. And that does bring into play. I don't see that being a long-term, forever type of situation where you have all these logging activity up, in El Dorado County coming through using this road. But it's certainly happening now, and it's helped accelerate the deterioration of the current pavement in that road.
I'd like to address that just a little bit. Yeah, because what you have is you have Sierra Pacific and a few small private landowners in the Forest Service basically going in there and salvaging timber. I'd say the Caldor fire cleanup is done. You'll see people building houses up there, but that's not a great big impact. But as far as the logging, I think you'll see a pretty big chunk of it done by the end of this summer. But there'll still be quite a bit of it going on even next year. And I guess the question I'm having is, especially if we pick option number 3, which is, 12-inch full depth reclamation with cement and a hot overlay, what would be the damage of waiting maybe an additional year? I know the road's gonna get rougher, but I think so. You have this summer, and if you waited did it like maybe late summer of the year after, I would think most of your salvage logging would be done by then. So you got this summer, and then next summer. By then, I think it'd be probably 80-90% of it would probably be done.
Problem is that based on the report, we can't wait too long because the harvest starts. And according
Well,
to
that's true.
Yeah, according to the vintners, they want it done before harvest starts, logically.
The only thing is, if we do it you know, early next summer, you're probably gonna have a lot of truck traffic the rest of that summer on that road.
Yeah, or you push it to spring of '24.
And it may be a thought, especially if we're doing if we do the complete reclamation, yeah, we can patch the road a little bit. It's gonna get rougher and rougher and rougher, but if you're to go through and grind it all up, it's not gonna really matter. If we're not doing that, then it's probably more important to maybe do it before it gets torn up, the base gets torn up too bad and starts moving on you a lot.
Yeah, it's your district. I mean, I'm hearing complaints on the road up there from some of the vintners right now.
Oh, it's a real I never said it's not a problem. All I'm just looking at is when do we do it, because you're gonna have probably a lot more logging truck traffic on there.
That's why I asked the question, though, is that if we fix it and have a year or two of truck traffic, you think the road will stay at that stable level, though, and it won't deteriorate too much?
I think, you know, we can go through the different options that are presented, but Supervisor Neto referenced the full depth reclamation, and I think with that option would give you the best structural integrity for the whole improvement.
It would. It'd probably take the truck traffic pretty well, but when you get that much traffic, it's gonna have some impact on any road, I would think.
Supervisor Neto, would you also agree that if they started working on the road, they'd go 50 and 88 and stay off of the logging trucks, the majority of them?
As long as you're working on it, but once you fix it and make it nice, they're all gonna go on that road.
Well, but this is probably a couple-month project near the end of summer, and I've heard too that by the end of next summer, they'll be done up there, the majority of the salvage logging.
In the end of next summer,
Next
yeah.
summer, right.
So that means if we fix it early, they're gonna have a lot of
Well, if we
traffic.
fix it next summer we have to be done before harvest season, that was one of the requests.
Yeah. Yeah,
And they're going off probably 60 or 70% of that truck traffic would have gone on 50 to Lincoln or 80 over to Standard. Because they're not gonna go through there when the road construction is going on.
Probably not, true, true.
Gonna wear out the state
I mean,
highway.
I'd like to fix it today, but, you know, we're
Yeah, what we're looking to do is have the work scheduled for June and July
Of next year.
next year. Or in other words, start after Memorial Day and finish before Labor Day, preferably by mid-August. And I think that's you know, even though it's a long project, once you get a contractor in there, I think, you know, that 8 to 12 weeks should be more than sufficient to finish the project, unless you run into some really squirrely field conditions.
I think they had harvest going in August this year, so you're gonna run into the grape harvest.
Yeah, I think, you know, I'd like to shoot for a mid-August completion on that.
And it was early this year too, so I was told. And I think what Pat said has some truth. I mean, maybe if you're working there, the trucks probably would want to go a different route. And so that means that push out almost like maybe the end of summer. By then they're getting pretty close.
Yeah.
Majority would probably be getting done.
That was my feeling on that too.
And then we can cheat that start date a little bit. You know, I don't think the wineries have some events in the spring, but I think by mid-May, I think those are all complete.
That's what I'd shoot for.
So, anyway, we've got 3 different options that the engineer has come up with. I have Carlton Allen with Bennett Engineering who's here. If, you know, he can kind of explain what those options are and talk about the benefits and drawbacks to those. I think the reason why I wanted to bring this here is so that you guys can see what's being proposed. And, you know, there's obviously there's some potential budget implications with that. So I want to be upfront and get that out early so that, you know, we don't have this surprise 4 months down the road when we bid this out, said, oh my gosh, we didn't expect it to be this much. So, or what have you. Or maybe we'll have some favorable bids and it won't be an issue, but I
Well, I wanted to say is that I'm in favor of myself of option 3, but I want to say up front that I've seen one of the companies that has done it, and I've watched their presentation and everything else, and I think it's, for that specific road, it would be the greatest option that I have seen as far as long-term, capabilities to keep that road, because we know we're always going to have truck traffic, on that road, and it needs to be able to withstand the capabilities of the future, and I truly think that option 3 would be a great advantage.
Why don't we have Mr. Bennett come up, and it is Mr. Bennett, is that right? Or is it
Mr. Allen
Mr. Allen?
with
Sorry.
Bennett Engineering.
Bennett Engineering. Have him talk about these. Only two I'd like to see is 2 and 3, the
Right.
differences there. So I think it'd be good to go through a discussion on that. Come on, Mr. Allen. Thank you.
Thank you, Board. If we could bring the slides back up.
Can you pull that microphone up just a hair? Thank you.
Is that better?
A lot better.
All right, very good. So option 2 would be a cold-in-place recycling, where we would use that existing, so average, we've got about 6 inches of existing asphalt out there on about 4 inches of aggregate base. As Richard mentioned, some of it, there isn't base out there, but average about 6 inches of HMA. And then, so we would go through that 6 inches, cold-in-place, recycle it, so there's a train of machinery that goes through, grinds it up, adds some either foamed asphalt or emulsion to it, creates, doesn't add any heat, that's why it's called cold in place, creates an asphalt-like structure. It's not as strong as traditional asphalt, which is why we cap it with 2 inches of HMA on top, conventional hot mix overlay on top of that, to provide more capacity and wearing course for that option. But no, we would still have base repairs in strategic locations identified where we're seeing a lot of rutting or potholing and base failures. So we would go through and repair about 10 to 15% of the sub-base on the road as it gets squishy and the impacts from the trucks.
Now, is that included in the estimates?
Yes, sir. Okay. So both option 1 and option 2 include 15% replacement of or repair of the base section through the road. And that's why we would have a moderate maintenance cost ongoing with option 2, because there would still be 85% of the base that is currently untreated. So, every so often we'd have to go back and fix the potholes that develop on those untreated sections. Or with option 3 on the next slide, we're creating a brand new base section with full depth reclamations. We go through and grind up everything, use all the existing aggregate and asphalt, and add a little cement to it. Creates a stronger base section, and then we come back and top it with, I believe, 4.5 inches of asphalt on it.
Question on that.
Yes, sir.
Isn't there some areas there's no base?
Yes.
What do you do there?
So you vary the cement content, so there still is asphalt on those, so we still have the aggregates and strength from the asphalt there, and then you can vary the amount of cement that you add in those sections.
And that'll compensate for probably like the clay you might run into or the sand. Okay.
I like that 3 option because of the project attributes: least future maintenance, and then minimal impacts for driveway and roadway conforms. But the one I really like is the profile, that it doesn't raise the profile. There's a lot of traffic going on and off that roadway, and what I've seen on those projects where it raises the profile, it makes it a lot tougher for people sometimes.
Yeah, and that goes to the reduced impacts with the conforms and the driveways and the amount of driveways we have there, and commercial driveways. We'd have to go back quite a ways to bring that profile up to if we were going to add 4 inches of.
What Richard's saying is absolutely correct. I mean, look in Dry Town, there's a sign there, Caltrans fixed and created this mess, and they've raised that road year after year, and now some driveways, you hardly can get in and out of them.
Put a 4-wheel drive to get out of your drive.
Oh, yeah, if you can.
How far are you required, if you went with option 2 where you raise the profile, how far are you required to go into driveways? Just to the area so it levels off?
Yeah, we would try to keep it around 10% of a profile grade on the driveway, max, just to ease that, so it's not a big hump up onto the road.
Yeah, being a lot of commercial activity up there, that's why I like the option 3. Profile's a big issue. Any other questions for Mr. Allen?
No.
What's the timeline to do between option 2 and option 3 as far as getting the actual work done?
Option 2 is a little faster, just because it's one less step. You don't have to wait. So with the option 3 with the FDR, so you go through, pulverize everything, mix the cement in, and then it's got to cure for about a day, and then you can come back and micro crack it and pave it. Or with the CIR, you can do the cold in place recycling and then pave it the next day. So there's a slight speed advantage to option 2, but not.
What about excuse me, this Supervisor Brown, what about access during that, during the
FDR process?
yeah,
So, depending on the traffic residential driveways, you can allow light passenger vehicles on the FDR as soon as it's down and compacted, or the contractor can plate. We'll put it in the technical specifications once we talk to all of the property owners on their access. You can put steel plate on top of it to spread the load, so it doesn't affect the base. Or we can also, at the driveways, look at doing a full depth HMA plug, just do all asphalt there, so there's no time for curing or anything like that. It's a much faster, you can get that done in about 4 hours.
as we're talking, it's still a lot of wineries up there, and, you know, we don't want to refuse people access to the wineries.
Yeah, so either do, it'd be about a 4-hour closure usually to do that driveway to get everything out and then repaved.
Right.
Or we could plate it with steel plates.
There'll be coordination with all the residents and wineries. Okay.
I think if you had a day with light traffic, I don't think that'd be the end of the world. I think you start putting in plates and full depth asphalt, you're on the cost up pretty substantial, I think.
Supervisor Axe has a question. Go ahead, Frank.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess you're looking at a year from now to do this, but the estimates that you have, how much are those going to change?
I wish we knew. If we knew that would be good. We have a 20% contingency in that number to account for a couple of things. Potential cost increases with inflation coming out, and then all of the IIJA money coming out has a potential to increase some of the cost, because it's going to increase the demand for asphalt and cement and rock with the increased construction with the federal funds. So there's a little contingency in there for that, as well as some of the other unknown design issues. We haven't gotten fully into the design yet.
Okay, thank you.
The board questions? Thank you, Mr. Allen. I'm going to ask for public comment at this time. And seeing none. Anyone on Zoom?
Not at this time.
And we'll take it back to the board. Mr. Vila, what is your recommendation on this? We have the money, it sounds like, to do, we will have the money to do number 3.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the difference in costs, at least potential, there's the increment is not that great, and I think for the cost of that increment, you get a lot better product. This is just for point of reference, we just are finishing up a section on Buena Vista Road that we did some reconstruction there. It's about a half a mile, and we bid it out as a conventional reconstruction. Dig it out, take all the material out, bring in a big lift of rock and then rebuild the road section. The contractor came to us and asked if we would entertain doing a full depth reclamation down there. And they would be able to do it at the same cost that they bid as they bid the job. And so it would be, and the benefit to them was they could do it a lot quicker. And obviously, time is money for a contractor. And so we went ahead and accepted that. And so that's the process we just finished down there. And yeah, after that, after they do that full depth reclamation, it can be driven on the next day. And I think we're going to have a pretty good product down there.
That wind, though, I've had people complain, it used to be my district, I had people constantly complaining about it. Now they're when they started the project, I had somebody say, why are you doing that? It's already a speedway.
Well, that's the problem. When you fix a road, people will drive faster, so.
Yeah.
We when the road's not in too good a condition, we have built-in speed bumps, so to speak.
Sometimes you just can't win.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, for the increment, I think that's definitely the way to go, but, there is a dollar amount attached to that. And, for this project, initially it was looking to use the Rural 20 proceeds we got, the PG Rural 20 proceeds. And there's about 1.7 I see available to do that. And obviously our estimates are exceeding that. There is a source of funds. There's another $200,000 that the county secured through ACTC. It was available through a Corona Response and Relief Supplemental Act. So there was money during the pandemic. So there's another $200,000 we can put on this project in addition to the Rural 20 proceeds. But if the estimates come true as what we see, we will be short. So we'll have to tap into, I would say, next year's SB1 money. When we go to budget for our SB1, we can have the balance of that project cost as a component, because we should, when we're preparing the SB1 program, this project should be already bid out, so we should know what our numbers are. Now, the estimates that are here that you saw on the slides are for when we talk about base bid, the first 3 miles. So unless we get really good numbers, which you never know. I've been surprised at a couple of our bids and the numbers we get for asphalt. You think they're going to be high, and sometimes someone comes in with a low number. We can make that decision, at that time.
So this would be going, from the Fiddletown Shenandoah intersection roughly up to Bell Road. That's what these numbers are for?
Yeah. Actually, we're going to start about a half a mile past that intersection, and I'm glad you brought that up, because you're thinking, well, why are we going to leave a gap? Because we finished that intersection several years ago, but we went out and looked at the road. There's a section there that's in pretty good shape, and to me, it wouldn't be wise to go and tear it up and repave it just for a continuity's sake. I mean, this stuff's expensive, and we might as well apply it to the section of the road that needs it the most.
So Richard, if I'm following along with you, we got 1.7 and a possible 200,000, so we'd be $1.1 million short if we did option 3 with the alternate. On our SB1 commitment for next year is probably 2.2 million.
That's close. That'd be close.
So it would take half of next year's money for that project.
Yeah, if we wanted to do the whole shooting match, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's what I wanted to find out. Thank you.
I guess another question I'd have is, you're starting at marker 0.75. There's a real ugly section right there. Is it including that when you make that right-hand turn? Probably like maybe 300 yards before Young's Winery? If you're heading up Shenandoah Valley Road, there's a house right there in the corner on the left. It should include that, because there's a real ugly area right there where it's starting to ripple.
I can't picture exactly where you're talking about, but I'm guessing that it should, because as we went and evaluated the sections, that first section was pretty good. Then if I recall correctly, the evaluation of the next section it dropped off dramatically as far as conditions.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure we'd be covering.
Look at the map, it looks like it's included, it's right about on that corner at the marker 0.75, that's right about the area. And then also, I've talked to you about that, by the bridge, is that one hole that keeps coming back by the, where used to be old Reinhardt's old foundry.
Yeah.
There's just it'd be on the east side of the bridge. That's something that should be looked at if we're gonna do this, because whatever it is, it keeps moving.
Yeah, we take we'll probably have to do an exploratory excavation there and see what's there, and if there's some voids, we could fill those prior to this project, so that, the work from this project won't be compromised.
Yeah, I guess the question I have too, on the SB1 funds, if we're taking about half of the next year's for it, are we have enough to do, like our striping and dig outs and?
Well, I mean, that'll be a decision we'll have to make, because yes, it's probably gonna be either or, I would say, because, we fund dig outs, there's striping, we do culvert repair and replacement under SB1. So those things, those will be choices we'll have to make when we come to that point, But again, we'll have these numbers, because hopefully this job will get bid out in January or February at the very latest. And so we'll know what's in front of us, dollar-wise.
Now, just because we don't get it done next year doesn't mean the dig outs and whatnot can't be done the following year. SB1 money keeps coming in, and that's what we're relying on for future.
Right.
Yeah.
So, just because it gets postponed.
No, I understand that, yeah.
But if we do
one
it this
thing I
year,
would
it does exhaust more of that SB1 money that could be spread in different places of the county too.
Oh, it does. It's always the where do you put your resources question.
Supervisor Neto, you had something?
Yeah, I think too, as far as option 2 does raise the roadway profile, and that's always a problem. And there's a lot of businesses out there. It's kind of a pretty big economic engine for the county, so I can see where probably option 3, if we can figure out a way to get the dollars work, is probably our best bet.
And also, you mentioned, the businesses and property owners that are out there. We'll do some outreach with them. We've already sent them letters, kind of introducing them to the project and let them know that what's going to happen. I've been in contact with the Vintners Association, the person who does their public outreach, put together information in newsletters. I know there should have been something gone out on that already, and we can move forward. I envision, having either through direct contact with property owners, or maybe having a public meeting where we can gather information from them as far as what challenges we have in providing them access, because yes, it's a road project, and there are going to be times when we're working right in front of their driveway. There's just no way around it. If we can determine from them if there's better days or better times of the days, we can do that and try to minimize the impacts to their businesses. We'll try to do that. But I'm not going to promise them that there'll be no impacts, because that's unrealistic. And so, I like to tell people, road construction and everyday life just don't mix. They don't go together very well.
Would night work be possible?
It would be possible, I think. I don't know what the cost increment would be for that. And you've got some noise. I mean, there are residences out there. It's not just businesses. So,
right.
We can't work all night.
Yeah, then you just end up with different people complaining.
Right.
It's because it is very loud. recycling operations.
So,
Well, it sounds like the board is favorable to option 3.
Yes.
Supervisor Neto?
Yeah, and I have one more question on that. You're looking at a 4.5 inch lift of hot asphalt. Is that stronger than the 2 inches with a 6 inch cold recycled in place? Or I mean, could you maybe drop that a little bit and bring that cost down some? Or would it be minimal as far as going a 3.5 inch lift?
Yeah, I mean, it would reduce, we could reduce the lift thickness, but it would reduce our design life. So
Okay.
we're at 20 years now. We could come down to 3.5, but we might be in the 15-year design range for that, so.
Yeah, that's probably not, yeah.
Not in this county.
Okay, thank you.
No, I very much for the 3, because this is super infrastructure. This is one of the things that I've always wanted for this county is to get step forward and increase our better parts of our infrastructure. And this I think is a great step in that aspect.
I don't disagree. I'm just looking at, we got a lot of roads falling apart.
Oh, I don't disagree, but, you know, this is a main travel road. You know, the next one that, you know, I would love to see is Shake Ridge Road. You know, this would be, I think.
Find no argument here.
Yeah, this would be a wonderful thing, you know, for the future of Shake Ridge Road.
It's turned into a collector, but it's also a region that provides a significant amount of tax revenue to the county.
Right.
Let's see, the money we've set aside, how much is that? How much have we got set aside for this already that we've been rat-holing?
what I'm using is the PG&E Rule 20 proceeds. That was roughly $1.9 million.
But weren't we setting aside $100,000 a year through the budget process already in the SB1, from SB1 money?
We did.
Yes.
And how much, that's what I want to know, how much is that? That should be $300,000 or $400,000.
That was around 300,000. I have to go back and how we discussed that allocation. Because this last go around, we kind of switched things up as far as how we allocated our SB1 funds. So I'd have to go back and look at that. Those funds that there was for a microsurfacing for Shenandoah, I think those were probably put towards that Buena Vista project. It's kind of a shell game.
Okay. Maybe you can just come up with that answer
Sure,
first.
sure.
With that, Supervisor Axe, your thoughts?
No, it seems like it'd be wise to invest and do a good job. So I think option 3 would be the way to proceed. So if you like, I can make that as a motion.
That's fine. Is there a second to that?
Second?
So it's moved and seconded to direct our,
Supervisor Brown, I think.
to direct Mr. Vila to proceed with the option 3.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. Any further discussion or public comment? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Roll call.
Oh, well, roll call.
Thank you, Chairman Forster,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Brown,
Aye.
Supervisor Crew,
Aye.
Supervisor Oneto,
Aye.
and Supervisor Axe.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Allen and Mr. Vila. And you're still up for our next item, 3B, State Route 88 Pine Grove Project Update.
Yeah, it was suggested to just kind of give a brief update on where we are on that project. I think the last time we talked, we had a couple of utility coordination things that we had to button up. Because basically plans and specs, the vast majority are completed and ready to go. all our real estate acquisition has been completed. Yeah, we're at the last stages of utility coordination. We had, at that time, we talked about, it was PG&E and AWA. PG&E has, which I was surprised with, they came up and, they've been kind of in disarray because they have had a lot of issues on their plate over the last several years, and they have had a lot of turnover and what have you, but once we got them focused on this, they've come through and they've gotten a lot of their issues, their issues resolved, and their pole relocations will happen during the project. But they've got the coordination issues, and we've got those things worked out with them.
Question on that. You're talking pole relocation. Have they ever talked about maybe undergrounding it as part of it?
I'm not aware of any of those conversations. That's a pretty expensive undertaking, and not sure how PG&E approaches that.
You might bounce that.
Money.
You might bounce that off them, because I know they're trying to go underground with a lot of their lines, and it might be a good opportunity for them to do it there.
Yeah, I know they're undergrounding lines where they have a lot of danger for potential, head off fire danger and such. In my past experience with undergrounding, usually there needs to be some sort of incentive for the utility to do so. In areas, say if there's redevelopment, and say if it's a blighted area, and if you have this redevelopment, you're going to bring in new businesses and such, which would give new customers for the utility. So a lot of times they will go ahead, it's all right, we'll go ahead and we'll either pay for the undergrounding or contribute to it, because they know down the road it's going to pay off for them, because they're going to have more businesses there or industry that is as ratepayers, they'll get their money back. So usually there's an incentive. If there's an incentive for the utility to do so, that's what kind of spurs that. And like what they're doing now, they're undergrounding lines up in the upcountry more, to prevent future fire issues. In this corridor, I'm not sure if that incentive is there for them. I don't want to speak for them. That's just my opinion.
We have reps in the back of the room from PG&E. I'm not sure you're prepared to speak on this. If not, then just stay seated. So, nope.
But yeah, it's pretty costly. So it'd be great.
Just run that by them.
And we're currently in working with the Amador Water Agency. They're the last ones that we're dealing with. There's been some continuity issues over the course of time as far as through the process, there's certain documents that are set up and sent out to all the utilities. It's pretty well predefined. It's a Caltrans utility coordination process, and there's been turnover and such. So there's things that fallen through the cracks. People who have gotten the initial correspondences don't work there anymore, and so
I think we're getting that resolved. So.
Yeah. So from that standpoint, when I mentioned we're doing some catch-up and such, that's what I'm kind of referring to, and it's certainly a group effort between us and AWA to try to get these things resolved, and hopefully we can push forward and get this done, because we're still shooting for a 2023 at least start of construction. But for that to happen, we have to get this stuff, utility coordination, buttoned up here in the next month or so.
What is your request today it says request and possible action to approve working with a administration management inspection team through construction?
This was really more for information.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, but, always leave that option out there for the board if they wanted to provide any direction that they felt necessary. But this is more for information. But yeah, we're currently working with the AWA staff to try to get these things resolved and, you know, to determine the liability that's out there with the facilities that need to be relocated or adjusted.
I know one question, pardon me. Question I had, I think I talked to either maybe you or John Getty, maybe both. Some of the driveways, it seemed like it wasn't just scale, so kind of trying to make it work, but some of the driveways seem pretty small, and they're side by side, and I don't know if some of those driveways, if you can make them maybe almost like a joint driveway, because if you made them wider, it'd be a lot easier for people to get on and off that highway quicker.
That's true, it would, from that standpoint. The issue that you have with a wide driveway is that your traffic is not channeled to a specific point, and so people are kind of aiming at a wider area, and there could be more conflicts with people entering and leaving a driveway if they've got this big wide area. They're all shooting for a different spot, and they could be shooting for the same spot, where when you have a more uniform driveway width, everyone knows you're going to come in on that right-hand side, and the people are leaving on the right-hand side. They're not kind of just choosing a spot in a wide open, a wider driveway. One thing would be good if you've got driveways, and we're really kind of past that point now, in all honesty, design-wise, but, you know, sometimes you can combine driveways, have joint driveways, which would require, you know, a joint driveway easement between property owners, but I think at this point, I can't, you know,
That'd probably get
design's probably down the road. We're past that point already.
That's what I kind of figured that. Okay.
Okay, any other board questions?
Nope.
Nope. Any public comment? Members, Supervisor Axe, you okay with this? Ms. LeBanco, one comment behind you. Good morning.
Good morning, Jamie LeBanco. I had a quick question, actually, came to me in your previous item, but you opened and closed public comment so quickly, and I wasn't paying that close of attention, I guess. So anyways, I was just curious about traffic
I actually go pretty
studies.
slow.
I know. I had a question about traffic studies when you were talking about the Shenandoah Road project and this project too. I've been trying to find the most recent traffic studies that we've done, and I'm finding them for 2009. And I was curious if we've done a traffic study since then, or if we had one, you know, kind of scheduled.
Well, Ms. LeBanco is correct. We used to do traffic studies and conduct them in-house. And so we had staff that were able to go out and put the counters out and do traffic studies. We don't have that staff anymore, so if we need to do traffic studies, we'll have to hire that out. It wouldn't be a bad idea to get a feel for, you know, where our traffic volumes are on some of our roadways. There is I don't know if you've heard of a program, it's called Streetlight, and what it is where there's a company out there that follows your cell phone, and they can, based on the GPS of your cell phone, they know where you're driving. And so we've through ACTC, they've secured some traffic data for the county and the cities here in the county through this. And so we've got, on certain spots, we've got some updated traffic counts from 2019 and 2020, which the 2020 counts are going to be kind of thrown off because that was at the beginning of the pandemic. But you can see, actually, what it does show you is what the decrease in traffic was from 19 to 20. It was like a 20 to 25% decrease in traffic in various locations. But so in some locations, we do have that data, and you can say, well, how accurate is that data? They've gone through, the people who've collected this data, they've gone through and and not necessarily here, but just in general in locations, and done actual counts at the same time they were collecting data, and they found that they correspond within 5 to 10%. So, you know, an actual count is going to be better because you're actually counting what passed the point, but for a 5 to 10% difference, that kind of gives you a pretty good blush of what's going on. But that is something I could probably look at and maybe target some areas that would be good to have, or, you know, updated information, just so that we know what's happening in our county road system as far as traffic volumes.
Vern, you did sit up on Shenandoah Road too, just to, for a period of time, just to count the trucks, right?
Yes.
So it was about what, 25 or 30 an hour?
Yeah, when we're worried about the hauling activities with the Caldor fire cleanup, and yeah, in an hour's time, it was in that range, 20 to 30, in around 25. 10-wheelers that were rolling through River Pines.
Have you heard anything on our damage claim yet from Car Recycle?
I have not.
Okay.
I've asked for an update, and I've kind of gotten crickets, so I need to rattle the chains again.
Okay. Seems like there's no other questions, so thank you for the update.
Thank you, Richard.
On that project.
All right, thank you, Board.
All right, thank you. We move on to item 3C, discussion of possible action relative to PG&E tree removal practices and the issues caused by leaving trees and branches larger than 4-inch diameter on site. And Supervisor Brown, this was your item that you requested to have put on the agenda.
Yes, sir. And I've also asked Dylan George, who's coming up to the podium right now. This all started with kind of multiple operations that have happened. I've had the Reese family, the James family, other families have contacted me on the fact is that PG&E has left some equipment. Now, at least the James family, the 8-foot, 4-foot round logs are starting to be cut up and removed. So that has started. But this is something that's gone in the upcountry. You know, we've had the Ledger Dispatch complain about it. I've contacted Dylan numerous times about this process, but it seems like PG&E and their contractors are in disconnect, because I've had the briefing from Dylan and another gentleman of Mike Webb that say, hey, when the ACRT comes to us, just ask them to move all the trees. Well, as conversations that I've had, it's not happening, or people are not aware that PG&E has requested to put out anything that's larger than 4 inches that they will remove. A lot of people think it's all their own problems, and so what I'm looking for is conversations with PG&E and their contractors to see where we can get this fixed, because your guys are the ones that are requesting the trees to be brought down. The owners of the property are not. This is you taking care of your easement. And so what I'm really looking for is to make sure that we can, we're not creating a fire load up here. Because, this last February, I, put trees out in a baseball field, over 800 tons. So yes, we are trying to pull our load of trees out of the hills. And so I need to make sure that PG&E is doing the same thing by not creating more of a fire hazard up there.
I'll say I've had a very similar issue as Supervisor Brown. Talked to Dylan George numerous times. Dylan's good to work with.
Yes.
But it seems like PG&E is not mandated to remove those big logs, which I think is a problem, because they're, in my opinion, is kind of creating a fire hazard out there. And a lot of homeowners, if you got a small tree, yeah, most homeowners can cut it up. And you start getting those 2, 3, 4 foot sections, people are incapable of cutting them up. So they sit there and they rot, and they're a fire problem. And not only that, PG&E's going out there some of the local loggers would probably take some of the logs, but they cut them up in 8 and 10-foot chunks, and nobody's going to take them.
Well, and the other thing we don't want to do is, on the AFPD property going in the growing camp, there's a mini log deck there now that the contractor has, so I don't think that's what we want sitting there either. Dylan?
Yeah, so I have a presentation here, hopefully address most of these issues. We'll take questions at the end, though.
Can you introduce both yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So, good morning, Chairman Forster, members of the board. My name is Dylan George. I'm Local Government Affairs Representative for PG&E. I have with me Matt Leedy today. He's also with our Government Affairs Department, deals specifically with our Vegetation Management Program. So, between the two of us, we'll walk through this brief presentation, and then, like I said, hopefully we'll address all your concerns and then take some questions as we go along. So, I've been here several times over the last few years to talk about wildfire safety. I feel like a lot of progress has been made with our system with, we didn't have a PSPS event last year. I'm going to knock on wood when I say that. I do think the trajectory is forward on this, but we certainly have some challenges. We still, have a good number of outages. We have challenges with vegetation management. So I'm happy to be here for an update on that, and I'll turn it over to Matt for the next few slides here. So I'm going to advance.
Can you hear me if I use this?
You two might want to switch places.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. If you could skip ahead to the next slide, please. I'm here to talk about the various vegetation management programs that we have set up to prevent wildfires. These include annual and additional inspections to remove dead, dying, diseased, or defective trees that could harm power lines or equipment. The first program I'm going to talk about is on the far left. This is routine vegetation management that occurs on all electrical distribution lines and involves meeting important state standards and fire safety standards. This is conducted once a year and adheres to several standards. The first of which is that in high fire threat districts, we maintain a minimum clearance of 4 feet around the power lines and recommended minimum clearances of 12 feet or more at the time of pruning. So you'll see when we make our first pass, we go 12 feet out from our lines, and that is to ensure that we maintain that 4-foot radius throughout the course of the year. In addition, we also have a drought and tree mortality response program. This is in response to the many years of drought that have weakened trees and made them highly susceptible to insect infestations. With the drought tree mortality program, we conduct additional inspections of trees along power lines and high fire threat areas with ground patrols and helicopters. And this occurs 6 months after the original routine annual inspection. As part of this program, as you'll see, we also cut down dead, diseased, dying, or defective trees, primarily in areas, again, affected by the drought and bark beetle specifically. These are hazard trees that could fall on our lines should they fail. Finally, I want to talk about our enhanced vegetation management program. This is as well in the highest fire threat areas and is identified, the area where we conduct this is identified by PG&E's wildfire risk model and expands on the risk mitigation work that we conduct in the 2 previous programs. It does exceed state standards for minimum clearances around power lines, and the primary difference between enhanced vegetation management and routine vegetation management is you'll see we go clear to sky. So it addresses all overhanging limbs and prunes to the same 12-foot radius with the intent of keeping it maintained for 4 feet. But again, ground to sky with enhanced vegetation management. EVM work, enhanced vegetation management, is one of the program that offers wood haul. And this is where it is accessible, where it is safe, and where there aren't any environmental restraints. Requires permission from the homeowners because, as I'll talk about in the next slide, that wood does belong to them. So with their permission, with enhanced vegetation management, if it meets that criteria, we could haul away wood 4 inches or larger in diameter, and then we offer to scatter and further cut wood smaller than that, working with the property owner to do that.
Question on that.
Yeah, please.
When you send a person out the forums to do your vegetation management, if they don't check any box, Do you take away the wood or leave the wood?
We cannot take away the wood without their permission, 4 inches and larger in diameter, because it does belong to that property owner. So we do require permission from the owner to take the wood.
Okay, now, this is what started all this. Again, this is Supervisor Brown. I'm also First Mesa Meadow Water Association Chair. And I had ACRT call me up and said, this is your property, and we need permission to enter the property and cut down some trees. They're hazard trees. And I said, sure, but I need you to take everything away. And they flat out said, no, we're not taking anything away. We're not taking any wood away other than it's 4 inches or less. And then I told them, well, then you do not have permission to enter the property. You know, because that is just, you know, I'm entering into a Firewise community. I need, as a community-based utility, we need to provide the best, safest area that we can, but, you know, not taking away this material. And I had this conversation 3 times. I had the next supervisor, and then the next supervisor above that give me a call and say, hey, we're not taking it away. Well, then you don't have permission to enter my property. That is what has really started all this. And that is firsthand, myself, being contacted by ACRT. And that's what's really started all this. So what you just briefed just now is not happening.
It does depend on the program. Under our Enhanced Vegetation Management Program, we do offer wood haul. Under the other programs, we do not.
But that is a problem. You're saying you're trying to be safe, but you're not. Public safety is, getting rid of this material. We have thousands of pines up there. If it was oak or any other material, yeah, people would take it. Caltrans has been digging out, $2 million worth of project along Highway 88. All the oak is being pulled, but the pine and everything else is still sitting alongside the road. Nobody's touching that pine. And that's the same thing, everywhere else. So just to create, and then, to add on to this, my maintenance workers are all retired water work guys. They can't handle dealing with that big of, logs and stuff. So what, you're not providing a service to something that we pay for. I have undergrounded utilities coming to my own home, but I still had a $623 PG&E bill last month. So, these are still things that I pay for, the services that I'm requesting, and I'm assuming everybody else in my neighborhood are requesting the same thing. Thank you, sorry.
Thank you. No problem. If we could skip ahead to the next slide. This has to do with the state regulatory requirements that we are bound to. We are required to maintain clearances and address and abate dead, diseased, dying, or defective trees that may pose a hazard to our facilities under the CPUC General Order 95, Rule 35, and the California Public Resource Code 4292 and 4293. Also, it's important to note under Article 12, the California Constitution, local discretionary authority over public utility projects is preempted by the CPUC's exclusive jurisdiction. Because of this, PG&E's vegetation management projects are not subject to local conditional use permits, tree removal permits, or other similar local discretionary permits. Having said that, PG&E, of course, obtains all necessary ministerial encroachment permits for work being performed in public right-of-ways. Finally, I wanted to talk a little bit more in depth about our Enhanced Vegetation Management Program. As you can see, we completed 108 line miles in 2021. We have 38.8 miles planned for 2022, which you could see with the, I guess that's a turquoise line. And of what we have planned, we have completed 2 so far. So we still have a lot of enhanced vegetation management work to do in Amador County this year. Are there any questions on our EVM program? Okay. With that, we're going to move into system hardening and some other programs that we offer to help prevent wildfires.
Yeah, so Dylan George once again. In addition to talking about tree removal, we wanted to talk about some of the other things that we're doing for wildfire safety, and then hopefully, forward-looking, some of the things that are going to help us need to remove less trees and, be out here less on a longer-term kind of basis, thinking ahead. So you may be familiar, I'm sure you are. The summer of 2021, PG&E CEO announced a plan to underground 10,000 miles in the high fire threat areas throughout our service territory. So this is a really big undertaking. We're at the very beginning of it. It would be the largest undergrounding effort by any utility, as far as we know, anywhere in the world. So, it is quite an undertaking. The main driver for this, of course, is reducing wildfire risk, but it's also going to have other benefits. It's going to reduce the need for tree trimming, tree removals. It's going to reduce the need for public safety-related power outages. Our goal is to have 3,600 miles completed by 2026. Just to put that into some perspective, we have 175 miles planned this year. That's throughout our entire service territory. So you can see the ramp up is just at the beginning stages of that. So with that in mind, I'm going to talk specific to Amador County on the next slide. So we have just 2 projects this year. You may be familiar with these. One of them is in Sutter Creek. Both of the projects I'm going to talk about include an undergrounding component and also an overhead wire system hardening component. So one of them is in the Sutter Creek area near Ridge Road. The primary driver of this project is that it's going to protect the city of Sutter Creek from future possible public safety power shutoffs. It's also going to protect the Amador Water Agency headquarters on Ridge Road from future public safety power shutoffs. We are currently in progress on that. It's a pretty big project. It is mostly overhead system hardening, but there is a couple of spots of undergrounding as well. Similarly, up the hill, Supervisor Brown, I'm sure, is well aware, in the Buckhorn area. Another project that is mostly a lot of overhead system hardening, but does include a little bit of undergrounding. So those are the projects happening right now. Next year, you could see on the screen there, we have 21 miles planned. It is still in the planning stages, that project. It is north of Pioneer on our Pine Grove circuit there. So we will have more to discuss on that, as we get more of it planned out. And then I wanted to address the last agenda item. I would like to speak to Mr. Vela, see if there's something we can do. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the particular project that he was talking about, so I don't know if it would be a good candidate for undergrounding, but certainly always things that we want to discuss with our county partners. So moving on to system hardening here. So again, a lot of work being done, and I'm sure you see it all. System hardening, we've talked about this before. It is where we replace the existing poles with, a lot of them that we're doing here are what we call Class 1 wood poles. They're taller, larger in diameter, treated poles. We replace the wire with a thicker coated wire that we refer to in the industry as tree wire. The idea being that hopefully if something were to hit that wire, it would be hardier, sturdier, have a better time of surviving that. So we have a lot of these projects going on. I talked about the 2 main ones that we have going on this year. You could see up there, 2021, really it's 2018 through 21. We've had a lot of these projects be successful throughout the county. I've been in here before, asking about road permits and that kind of thing to do this work. So, we appreciate the county's cooperation in these. We appreciate your residents' cooperation because a lot of times these are pretty impactful and, they do require us to block roadways and create traffic hazards, but in the end we get a better system. We also have a project plan. This is not shown on the screen here, but in Volcano, Shake Ridge Road area that we're looking at for hopefully the first quarter of 2023. Again, an overhead system hardening project. Weather permitting, hopefully we'll get that done before the next fire season. I also wanted to mention in terms of the undergrounding, again, the ramp up of this is fairly steep, but we do plan 2024 to 2026. We do plan hundreds of miles of undergrounding within Amador County. So you will see, as we get these future plans scoped out, you will see a good amount of the work happening in Amador. So, we're going to need to work together on that, and, you will probably hear a lot from me and a lot from other PG&E folks in the coming years, as we work together with the county on that. So next slide, that may be it. Yeah, I believe that is it. So happy to try to address any questions you may have.
Well, again, that's a nice dog and pony show, excuse my terminology, but it's not helping our core problem here. you know, it's getting rid of the material that's on people's property that you guys fell. You know, I'm not asking you to go outside your scope of thing, but when there's, you know, a tree that you identify that needs to be dropped. So part of the problem here is a resident, let's say, doesn't have a fireplace. So they can't even burn it if they want it. You have a log sitting there. How do they get rid of it? You know, there's fundamental things that you guys, you and your contractors have access to that a normal home resident does not. You know, a skip loader, dump trucks, large trailers. Any of this material is stuff that you guys have access to that a normal homeowner does not. And that's the huge amount of our problem here, is getting rid of this material. It's, you know, when I did my pile up at Pioneer Park, there was people coming out with logs that they said, hey, this is what PG&E left me. Thank you for doing this. Because ACES won't take a log. ACES won't take any large material because they can't deal with it either. But you and your contractors do have access to it. You have access to the old cedar mill, you know, where you could pile material up there and then have a grinder come in and take care of it. So you do have access, you know, that are fundable and accessible, which a normal home resident does not. And that's what I'm really looking at to see what we can do in the future. You know, I have a lawsuit here sitting there from the county of Santa Cruz, and you know, going after you guys for virtually the same problem from the what was it? I don't remember what the CZU fire. I don't know what that corresponded to, but
2020, I believe.
Yeah, but I'm not asking for anything more, and I'm hoping this board will agree with me, is I just want to help my residents get rid of this material. You know, it's just a simple process of getting rid of the material. Now, if somebody wants to keep it, you know, I think the ACRT, in my opinion, should reverse the process. Hey, we're going to chop up everything 4 inches. Do you want to keep the 6 inches in a bore, or we're going to take it? You know, that process to me should be changed. Not that, hey, I'm not taking anything over 4 inches and I'm walking away. That's where this major problem is coming from. Glenn, did you want to speak on anything on this?
I can address a couple,
Okay.
if you'd like. So, you know, we want to remove the wood if it qualifies for that, and if we have the homeowner's permission. I mean, what you just said there, the laws that we're governed under by the PUC require that we have the property owner's permission because it is viewed as their property. You know, I think I've worked with probably all of you over the time that I've been in this job where you have, you know, constituents that have complaints about, you know, a slow process to remove wood. I think we're generally able to address those. It's not always perfect. I wish it could be better. You know, we work with a lot of contractors out there. We have a lot of line miles, you know, in this county and in others. And, you know, I think we do our best to try to address these things. You know, it's not always going to be perfect, but, you know, I just want to continue to work with you guys and
I don't have a problem with PG&E.
Right.
It's your contractors. I was bullied 3 times. They just didn't recognize who I was at the time I was being bullied to get this done. And ain't happening, sorry.
Yeah,
And in my next step will either be to go to the CPUC or start telling my constituents to refuse any work from PG&E. And then that'll only create more of a havoc.
It will.
But that havoc will eventually change something. So where do we go from here right now?
Well, as I said, I mean, I want to continue to work with you. We want to continue to remove the wood where it qualifies when we can. And, you know, the process is not always perfect, but.
And you know, you and I have worked on that numerous times, and I don't have any problem with it. You know, like I said, the Sid James property, you know, you guys are taking that material out. You know, here's a 4-foot log, an 8-foot long log, 4 foot in diameter, sitting on his driveway, you know, that they can't get one of their vehicles out of the driveway because it's been sitting there for a year. You know, they just didn't know to come to me to to get help.
Right.
You know, so that was, you know, so they've been fighting there, but all of this is stuff that shouldn't, I mean, if a log's on a piece of property for a period of time, I understand. Sometimes things get skipped over. You know, when Mario's first took over this project, they were taking everything. I didn't get any phone calls when Mario's first took over the project. They had the 2 grabber trucks, and then, you know, they were probably about 2 weeks behind on grabbing material, and that's what I would tell residents. Hey, they've got it all set up, sitting there alongside the road. It's gonna be gone in 2-3 weeks. You should be fine. And that's been fine, but all of a sudden now, the last 4 or 5 months, I've been getting these phone calls. They're not taking anything. They're not doing anything. So that's where we've come to a head right now.
I think it's been a problem even longer than that, Jeff, because if you go drive around the upcountry, pardon me, but it's a pile of pickup sticks. I mean, there's a lot of logs out there. It's been an ongoing problem for a long time. And you're saying only the enhanced vegetation management is all that you're legally required to take?
That's all that we're legally allowed to remove, right? Yes.
Okay. I think what you need, probably one thing that help a lot is on your form, if you made it a lot clearer, the logs will be left if you don't check this box. If you check this box, we will remove, if possible, that vegetation. I'm just going off memory. The form isn't real clear.
Well, it's not even on a form anymore. It's an iPad that they walk up to your door. You know, so it's not even a form, you know, that you're actually doing anymore. It's just an iPad. And then right now they're starting even a phone call. I did all my business just off a phone call.
Wow. It's a big problem. I mean, you guys got a fire problem. You're paying liability, damages out. The county has a fire problem, so the homeowners. And you drive around the roads, there's pile of logs all over. And kind of like Jeff, I get people saying, I don't know what to do with this stuff. I can't cut it up. And nobody wants a pine. If you left it longer, you might find people might take it, but they chop it up in small chunks, and there it sits. What's your answer to that?
Again, when we are allowed to remove the wood, we want to remove it. When we have the property owner's consent. I mean, I can't speak to all of the situations up there. I think when I talk to you guys and you have one for me, we look into it. We see if it's something that we are allowed to remove. A lot of those may be situations where we didn't have property owner consent to remove the wood.
I mean, Supervisor Brown said he's ready to give the permission, but they would not work with it.
And I'm working to try to address his specific issue. I understand he's had a bad experience.
We don't want specific issues. We want across the board.
Right.
But what he said is contradictory to what you're saying, though, is he wants to give permission, and they're saying we won't do it.
Right.
It's a matter of whether or not the wood qualifies for wood haul, and that's certainly something that, when we receive the information, the address of the property owner who requests it, that we could look to see if it's qualified for wood removal, and if so, and if we have permission, that we could set up a timeline to do that.
Why wouldn't it qualify? Because it's too big, or?
No, because of the program that it falls under. So if it's outside of enhanced vegetation management, that is the one program.
But it's in a very high fire threat area.
Understood.
So this is just crazy, to be honest.
It's got to qualify, or it's got to qualify for reimbursement, I guess, right?
Right, because,
That's what it's coming down to, is money.
That's right.
If PG&E doesn't get reimbursed, they won't authorize it to be hauled off.
Yeah, it's a ratepayer funded program, so it's at the Public Utilities Commission's direction, just like all of our ratepayer funded programs are. So it has to qualify under something that the Utilities Commission has told us to spend the ratepayer money to remove the wood on.
So if it's normal clearing or drought related, like trees died, you're saying quite often that's not, doesn't qualify to be removed?
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, basically,
now, I mean, most of your county, as you're well aware, is high fire threat area. Most of it, I believe, would be enhanced vegetation management.
Pretty much the whole
that's,
county.
Yeah.
But why am I getting rebuffed?
Again, I'm trying to get a specific answer to that. I don't have that right now at the moment, but I'm working on that too.
Greg, did you have anything?
I was just gonna, is there a way to get like some of the details, like how many trees that are taken out altogether? Not just trimming, not just the 12-foot trimming, but like if you take out a tree, do you have data that shows what program it was taken under?
Yes, and that's something that I could get back to you on.
Okay.
Total, if I'm hearing you correctly, total number of trees removed and which program they fall under?
Yeah, because I'm curious, like how many of the like you just said, how many of the trees are under the enhanced maintenance that do qualify for removal? How many are the drought removal? I assume there's not a lot of trees that are removed under routine maintenance because you.
Yeah, and, again, in your county, obviously, most of it would be enhanced because you are mostly, tier 2, tier 3 high fire threat areas.
Okay. So I'd be curious to know the breakdown, and then if you say that you're not legally allowed to remove like if you take a dead tree because of you're legally precluded, or you just don't get the funding. I mean, what's the difference?
It's not paid for under the ratepayer funded tree program, vegetation management program, right?
Okay.
That's your answer.
Yeah. And that is not an answer people will accept.
Well, I don't think anybody's going to be satisfied with the response today, but I need to take public comment. If there's any public comment on this issue?
Yeah, there's a fellow back.
Yes, sir. Come on up. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Jay Finkelstein, 11305 Quail Drive in Pine Grove. Mr. Chair, Honorable Board, County staff, thank you for hearing this matter. It is of significant impact to a number of homeowners. I have a picture here. I don't know if, unfortunately, this is, might I approach the board and just show it to you? This is what was left in my yard.
I can see it from here. It's big enough. So.
That looks like a big one.
Don't say anything until you go back to the microphone.
So there were two 7-foot sections about 30 inches in diameter left there. And the issues, pieces, as you've indicated, Supervisor Brown, too large to handle safely without specialized equipment. In my case, these are very dangerous in that there are some pieces now that have been reduced in size, but I have the threat of them rolling down the hill through my house, and I don't want to use my $8,000 or $10,000 worth of deductible on my homeowners if that should go through. Also, there's the extra expense and visually undesirable, as well as you've indicated with the fire hazard. I called repetitively with the PG&E program. I was under the impression that their mandate, when I read within their mission statement, was to leave only those things that are manageable for the homeowner. And I think there is a statement to that effect. I wasn't able to get internet to have that here, but I believe that is there. I was dealing with 3 different individuals at the PG&E vegetation reduction, and I will swear to you that if it wasn't 40 calls, it was 100 calls. Repetitively, can we get this cut into at least 24-inch sections so in some way, shape, or form I can drag it out? Well, I was told, well, the contractor will only reduce it to maybe 48. And I said, how can I handle? I said, I have 7-foot sections. If you reduce that to a 30-inch by 48-inch section, I can't deal with that. And eventually, a gentleman came out in a Raj from Mario's or said he was going to come out, and they reduced it to about 22-inch sections. Now I have these probably 250-pound plus rounds that I'm going to have to lag and chain to an ATV or UTV side by side so they don't roll down the hill while I can drag it up. So it's a huge problem, visually, aesthetically, fire hazard, And as you've indicated, this was not my desire to have this tree taken out. So we're left with your arguments that will hopefully help us get relief on this matter. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Maybe you could give your contact information to Mr. George, and he could help you out.
Thank you.
Morning, Glenn.
Morning, Deputy County Counsel Glenn Spitzer. Just wanted to comment a few things. I had a similar experience with Mario's, asking them to remove it, and they wouldn't remove it. So I had about 20 logs on my property, pine, 3+ diameter, 3 foot plus, some of them. So I just wanted to mirror your comments there. But it sounds like it's an issue that it's not being strongly communicated to PG&E's contractors. I do want to touch on the settlement agreement that Santa Cruz had with PG&E. So Santa Cruz did file a complaint with the PUC against PG&E. They had several issues, but one of their issues was the vegetation removal. And the result, the settlement agreement, required PG&E to remove the log upon request. And there were no conditions on it. It was, if it didn't matter what area it was in or any type of other condition, if the request was made, PG&E was required under the settlement order to remove it. I just wanted to make that clear.
But that was only in the burnt area, correct?
My understanding is that was upon any request, any time that PG&E cut and left vegetation there.
And that was part of the settlement anywhere in Santa Cruz County because of the settlement.
Because of the settlement agreement.
This is not case law, but it is something that the courts may pay attention to if Amador County filed a similar action?
Yes. There's a ample legal authority, a lot of it through implication. There's nothing that expressly deals in a focused way with this requirement to remove vegetation. But there's a lot of legal authority that you could rely on, and I think make a pretty strong argument in the CPUC court.
Okay.
What's interesting too, in that settlement, it says in item B that PG&E will require property owners to opt into the wood haul program and provide PG&E with authorization and consent to haul wood and brush, which is kind of interesting. So it's almost saying, hey, you know, if we're to take this stuff out, we want you to let us remove it. Maybe Dylan looks like he wants to talk to that.
Well, we have a Zoom comment I'd like to take first.
Thank you. Caller, please identify yourself and go ahead when ready. You need to unmute yourself on your end.
Looks like you're unmuted.
Yes, hello. This is Jerry Poor from Pine Grove.
Good morning.
And I wanted to address one thing regarding the tree trimmers. I drive around the county daily. I'm a real estate appraiser, and I see these crews. And a number of times when these crews have left after lunch, I find literally hundreds of small one-shot tequila bottles left in the ditches all over our county. I've sent pictures to a couple of the supervisors regarding these tequila bottles being left out on the sides of our roadways. I took a couple of them into the Pine Grove market where they confirmed, oh yeah, the crews come in and buy these by the dozens almost daily. You know, it's one thing to leave wood in everybody's yard. It's another thing to leave trash all over our properties and all over our roadways. I'd like to know what PG&E intends to do about that.
All right, Dylan. I'm not sure you can do much about that, but.
Yeah, I mean, I would need, something more specific to look into. We if our contractors, it's our responsibility to manage the contractors. If they're doing something wrong out there, we need to manage that. I mean, I can't speak to that, I don't have specifics to speak to on this, but we need to manage the contractors. And then I did want to address the previous comment. So yeah, as you mentioned, we do have to have the property owner's consent to remove the tree. Again, that is the legal framework that we work under. It is the property owner's property. They have to consent to us to remove the tree. I was also going to comment, I do believe, as Supervisor Oneto said, that Santa Cruz settlement was specific to the wildfire area.
Any other public comments? I'm not sure we're going to do much about this today. Supervisor Brown, it's up to you whether you want to bring this back to the board and have council look at a similar action that was taken in Santa Cruz.
Yeah, you know, if, I would like council to take a look at, you know, because it sounds like PG&E is kind of hands tied until the CPUC says something. So I'm looking at, you know, if we can give direction to staff to go down this rabbit hole a little bit farther if we can and see what we can, you know, what we can pull back out. Because we need to do something, because there's too much material. You know, there's a lot of people who have been pulling out their own trees, and then to have PG&E leave trees is just not something we need. We need to go keep going on this. So I'd like the favor of the board to allow county council to continue on this process to see how where we can go further down the road.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay with the board? Supervisor Axe, you okay with that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And just an item of interest too, you
We're done with it.
I think we want it cleaned up as much as possible, but it's especially around people's homes. I mean, if it's out in the wild blue yonder, people don't seem to mind so much. It's maybe a little fuel problem, but that's trees die naturally too. But where we're seeing the real big issues, PG&E goes in, drops trees in people's front yard, in their driveway, and they take the small stuff and leave it. I mean, some of these trees are 4 foot in diameter, and people can't deal with them. And so they either got to pay and trying to get a contractor to come in for one tree or two trees or whatever it may be is really expensive. If you've got a crew there like PG&E does on site with all the proper equipment, it's a lot cheaper for them to do it right there and then. So I think there's a problem there, and I don't know if PG&E doesn't want to do it or if it's a contractor problem, not doing what they're supposed to do. But
comes down to money.
I think it is a money thing, but something needs to be looked at.
Supervisor Crew.
If I may indulge from Dylan, I have another question for you, but I got a problem you can fix.
Those are my favorite kind of problems, yeah.
Hurry up and get to the podium. When you took your brief respite from PG&E, we met with Chris Bennett and some folks from Stockton about fixing Electra Road.
Yeah.
And they were gonna do kind of a study and come up with, it's a difficult road, 2 hours, it's a one-way in, it's gonna take forever. And we haven't heard anything since. Now that you're back, I was hoping maybe we could rekindle that fire.
Yeah, I believe that we do have the study, and I have shared it with some of the staff. Let me look.
Oh, they did it?
Let me double check, and I would be happy to share that with you.
Is that where Electra Road's maybe like slipping a little bit, kind of?
Well, it's just all but unpassable.
Talking about resurfacing.
Yeah.
As it is a disaster.
Yeah.
And even PG&E admitted it's tearing their equipment up going in and out of there.
And Dylan, don't get me wrong, I love working with you. You know, we've had great working relationship. So
thank you. Likewise.
And so, but you know, somehow we need to get part of this fixed.
Understood.
Thank you.
I agree that Jeff said Dylan's been very, very good to work with. But there's a problem, and you're the guy. So
I hear you all. I absolutely, I want to address concerns as much as I can.
And Dylan, you might share that with Richard Vila because he was in on that study.
Okay.
He was involved in that.
That's 3 things I need to talk to him about, so I will do that. I will follow up, yes.
All right, thank you.
But you got to understand our point of view too, and Supervisor Brown's, is that you're fixing one problem, but you're creating another by leaving those trees in place. So, and it sounds like it all comes down to the money, like it usually does. So, okay, board's going to take a recess until 11 o'clock. So now you have 10 minutes. order. Go to item 3D, Recorder's Office, discussion and possible action relative to approval of the clerk recorder's signature on a system upgrade agreement to digital reel with BMI Imaging Systems to implement requirements set forth by Assembly Bill 1466. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm just here to answer any questions if you had any. We're paying for it out of trust money. It's required because of the bill passage, and so we're moving forward.
Okay.
Any questions?
I was wondering why I wasn't on consent myself.
Well, I was kind of hoping it was, but it's not, so.
Come on, you love coming before us.
That's right.
Just want to say hi.
Yeah.
Nothing else going on,
No.
I do have one question. I'm looking at the list, Appendix A, search terms.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to take out any reference to him, her, all of that?
No, if it restricts people from, I'm going to the list here. Those are search words because it's an OCR search. So the computer goes through and they put these in there as a way to find when there is restrictive language. So once these words have been identified, then they look and see if it looks like restrictive language. And then we go through the process of them giving that list to me, and then I give it to.
And this is restricted language of racial or sex or anything to that?
Yes, any discriminatory language.
Well, how come it says woman, female in there? How come they don't have man, male?
That would be a good question for the code writers.
That is a good question, except there was a time frame where women weren't allowed to have property. And so I think that is probably why that was one of the search criteria, but that's a good question for those folks.
I'm just trying to understand. I don't understand a lot of things that are going on today. So. All right. Any more questions? Any public comment? Hearing none, board action.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the agreement for $21,200 from the Recorder's Modernization Trust Fund to fund the upgrade. Any further discussion? A roll call.
Thank you, Chairman Forster.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Brown.
Aye.
Supervisor Crew.
Aye.
Supervisor Onetto.
Aye.
And Supervisor Axe.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, lady.
I hope you enjoyed our discussion on trees. All right, item 3E, discussion and possible action relative to clarification of action taken during the budget approval. Due to some conflicting statements from staff and last-minute changes, the intended actions were unclear. Also, the approval of the budget resolutions was omitted from the motion to approve. Mr. Eiley.
Supervisors, I apologize for having to bring this back to you, but during my narrative, I was unclear. I made a couple of statements that conflicted with themselves, and as such, it's unclear exactly what I asked you to do and ultimately what you did. So to clarify that, we're just going to lay it out again and ask for your approval of that. So we've got the bullet points there. I don't think we need to go through it again, but if you would just just blanket approve those, I think we're good, and Tacey has the direction that she needs to go forward, and I will not let that happen again.
Well, and under your recommendations, just for public edification, approve the two budget resolutions and confirm that the following actions were intended during the budget hearing. The budget is approved with the $1,931,500 that is designated as going to reserve, actually going to the payroll reserve. The amount set aside for the jail from the ARPA savings is increased from 1.6 to 2.1 million. The jail reserve account is created with the authority granted to the auditor to transfer funds into this account with the already allocated funding at the appropriate time.
At the appropriate time, yes.
That's right. So that's crystal clear to the board?
Yes.
Any public comments? And can I have a motion, please?
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Let Frank.
Okay, Supervisor acts on the second.
And that includes the resolutions, correct?
The resolutions would be included in that too.
Yes.
That was under the recommendations that I just read, approve the 2 budget resolutions. So, with that, roll call.
Thank you, Chairman Forster.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Brown.
Aye.
Supervisor Crew.
Aye.
Supervisor Onetto.
That's early. Aye.
And Supervisor Axe.
Crowd
Aye.
in there.
All right, motion carries 5-0. Only a couple items left. 3F, Board of Supervisors, discussion and possible action relative to the appointment of a primary and alternate delegate to the 22-23 CSAC Board of Directors. This needs to be done before the annual conference, which is coming up in November. I've spoken to Supervisor Brown about this. He's okay with leaving the positions the way they are at this time, correct?
Yes, correct.
So with that, it would mean Forster as the primary and Brown as the alternate. Any discussion?
Nope.
As long as you folks are happy and
Right.
Frank is happy, so I'm fine with it.
That's why I wanted to talk about it, so with him before, to make sure it was okay. I didn't tell him I was going to be the primary either. So. Okay, any public comment? Then I need a motion to this effect.
So move to approve the board selections for CSAC for 22-23.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded to put those 2 names in as primary and alternate. Any further discussion? Then roll call vote.
Thank you, Chairman Forster.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Brown.
Aye.
Supervisor Crew.
Aye.
Supervisor Onetto.
Aye.
And Supervisor Axe.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Our last agenda item, 3G, the minutes. I had quite a few minor corrections, but then a couple what I would call more major corrections with Supervisor Axe, who was absent from the meeting, actually, I think, making a motion and a second on 2 different actions, which I don't think he was absent. I don't think he can take those actions. So then I had a bunch of minor corrections.
Likewise, and looks like we went back about 2,000 years almost in one of the actions.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I'd make a motion to approve the minutes with just some minor changes in those the 2 actions where Axe was listed when he's absent.
Second.
Is there a second? Who made the second? Okay. Motion by Supervisor Onetto, second by Supervisor Brown. Roll call.
Thank you, Chairman Forster.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Brown.
Aye.
Supervisor Crew.
Aye.
Supervisor Onetto.
Aye.
And Supervisor Axe.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 5-0. With that, our meeting is concluded. Closed session has already been handled, so the board will meet again in, looking for the date, October 11th at 9 a.m. So we are adjourned.